It's painful, it's uncomfortable, and you're probably frustrated. You've given up hope, but it's just a season. He's still the man I fell in love with, but he's just becoming a more polished version of that. I'm proud of all the work he's done. I'm proud of all the insight he's made and all the progress. Happy with the positive trajectory that he's put his life on.
All right. Hey, brothers, I have here Andrew and his lovely wife here, Catherine, and they're willing to share their story and overall experience as Andrew here was rebooting. He's coming to a year already in the program, and it
Yep.
uh, changed his life, and he wants to share that, how it impacted his wife as well. So let's get it started. So, what was the marriage like before your husband received help?
It was a lot of a roller coaster, lots of emotions, lots of just ups and downs. We always had pretty good communication and we like to try to talk things through,
Yeah.
but Andrew had a bit of a temper. And the temper was, I never would know what would set him off. So if I brought something up, sometimes it would set him off or upset him. Or if something happened in the day, might have upset him. He was never really good at hiding his emotions. So I always knew what, like, oh, he's upset. Oh, he's sad. There was a lot of kind of bratty like attitude. He was very entitled. And I had a tendency to call him out on that. It was just kind of how I was raised. People would just call me out on bad behavior. And when I saw it in him, I would do it to him. It probably wasn't the best thing to do because I know that can harm like a self-image, feels disrespectful, but I did that and it probably started more fights than it actually fixed.
It helped. It did help.
It did help, but I probably didn't do it in the best way. I was very just, you're being a brat, you're being entitled. Stop acting that way.
Yeah.
And I probably should have been more empathetic to where he was and try to communicate a little better. We've gone through a lot of different phases in our relationship. There were phases where I was a very maternal figure to him and I was like organizing our lunches and our breakfasts and our suppers and I was doing all the housework and I felt very resentful that in that time and I always kind of felt like I had to focus on him or us and I never got to focus on my goals. Whereas Andrew got to focus on whatever he wanted. He could go out with his buddies. He could be mad if he wanted. He could go shopping or eat junk food or, go out for lunch when he wanted. But if I did that, there was judgment. There was like ridicule. And I was like, so I called out the double standard. I was like, why do you get to be mad? Or why do you get to eat out? Why do you get to do these things? Like this isn't fair.
Yeah.
Like, and I would never be able to do that to him. Like I would, but it would make him more angry.
Yeah.
He took up a lot of space in our relationship.
Yeah.
Just the quiet times when I was trying to decompress, he would talk and incessantly talk. And I would just say, I need to just sit quietly for a little bit. Or he'd pester me about something. He'd be anxious about something in our life and he'd bring it up day over day over day. And I just said, you need to stop. You just need to this is getting out of hand. You need to calm down. You need to have some faith that we'll get there. We need the room to grow. And it was very kind of smothering a lot of the time. Yeah, it was hard dealing with the ups and downs of his emotions. I also felt like I wasn't ever good enough, whether it was physical features or that I wasn't social enough or that I wasn't outgoing enough. I always felt like I was being compared to this ideal woman he had in his mind. And I just never lived up. And I always just kind of was like, oh, is he just settling for me? Like, am I actually who he loves? Or am I an idea that he can mold? Like, I am who I am. I'm a very silly person by nature, but he would tell me that I'm being too silly. It was like, that's just part of my personality. That's just how my family interacts. That's just who I am. But are you trying to take that away from me? And I just felt like I was never good enough. I felt like I just was always trying to be someone else. And because of that, I really lost my identity. I've developed a lot of fear and anxiety over the last little while. And yeah, I just lost myself. Like I had an idea of who I was when we met, and through all these things like dealing with Andrew's temper, dealing with anxiety, dealing with the addiction, dealing with everything, I feel like, yeah, I've lost who I am. And
Mm.
I'm trying to figure that out now. So,
No, thank you. Very vulnerable of you to share all that, and I appreciate it. And yeah, that's very unfortunate, right?
mm.
And so, how do you feel hearing that, Andrew?
Well, I mean, I've heard that all before, so
Mhm.
none of that's a surprise to me. It still hurts. I mean, I'm not shaming myself anymore for it, because if I would have known better, I would have done better, absolutely. Mostly just trying to, one of the big drivers for my reboot has been to become the man that she deserves, and to kind of be the safe space to give her that bandwidth back so she can, grow into who she wants to be. And yeah, so
No, brother, thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. And you've done the work, and it's just kind of like, man, hearing that, right? Like, wow, we get to see really how when we just indulge in our behavior, we tend to be like not see how impactful it is in a negative way, of course, when it's
yeah.
someone else involved. But no,
Mm.
I appreciate you both of you sharing your sides. And so, how did it make you feel, Catherine, when you would find out that your husband would relapse?
To be honest, in the beginning, I was just kind of numb about it. Andrew had a lot of tells, like things he would do or say before he started the recovery program. And it was something that we dealt with almost daily. And I just knew. So
Mhm.
when he relapsed, I had kind of numbed myself to the addiction. And so I just knew, and I was just kind of numb. And I was like, it was almost like I didn't care. I did, and I numbed myself because I cared, and I just couldn't handle probably the sadness and hurt. Instead of using that energy for us, he was using it elsewhere. And after a while, when I realized I was numbing to when he told me he relapsed, like I knew he was going to say it. When I realized I was numbing instead of actually processing my emotions, there was disappointment. And I know relapse is part of the recovery program. It's just there's so much changing and so much that's happening. It's just sometimes it's overwhelming. It's just going to happen. And I understand that. And so I tried really hard to understand that this is just a part of the process, that this is just something that's going to happen. And it's okay if I feel disappointed. And in the beginning, I did feel disappointed, but I wouldn't let it like discourage me or him. I tried not to tell him that it was like, oh, it's okay. Because it's like it is, but it isn't. Like it's a part of the process, but it's something that you need to address. And when he would tell me that I've learned a lot from this relapse, I was like, I kind of questioned it at first, but then I started seeing like a lot of growth in those moments, and I started seeing behavioral changes and him making different decisions. So I was like, okay, he relapsed. And yes, I'm disappointed, but I'm choosing to believe that he is learning in these moments because I am seeing a difference. So now if it happens, it's like, okay, this isn't the end of the world. This isn't gonna like derail us. This isn't gonna cause damage. And he takes the time and space to process it. And it is a learning moment in for him. That's how he's chosen to use them. And I do see the growth. And I do choose to believe that he is growing because I am seeing it. So they're not as hard on us when they do happen now.
Okay.
So it's kind of been an evolution. My reaction has kind of been an evolution from when he started to now.
No, thank you for sharing that. And so you said you've seen growth in him. What specifically have you seen that's like, whoa, I actually see a difference now?
Um, uh, like a lot of things. He's working on like controlling his temper more and working on emotional maturity. There was always one thing that I struggled with was the temper and kind of the emotional immaturity. And I am seeing that he's working on regulating his emotions, like regulating reactions. Like I tell him, like, you can be mad at things, you can be frustrated. It's not okay to like throw things or hit things or like,
And I never hit her.
no, never laid hands on me. And to be honest, if he did, I would have hit him back. I'm a green belt in karate. I have no
There you go.
problem about
Roundhouse.
fighting back. So no, so he is working on, yeah, gauging his reactions. Like he's like, you're allowed to have emotions, just maybe don't overreact. Like if something upsets you, you're allowed to be upset. Just make sure it's not an overreaction. One of the things I would often say was like, okay, what catastrophe happened today? And he would get mad at me for that. And I was like, well, the reaction you're having is that it was world-ending catastrophe. So what happened? And he would tell me, and I'm like, okay, yes, you're allowed to be frustrated. You're allowed to be annoyed at the situation. You're allowed to have these feelings. Rein in your reaction, like moderate your reaction. And he's really done a good job of that. He's also working with his ADHD. He's learning how to work with it and not fight it, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Because
makes perfect sense. Yeah.
ADHD can kind of be a bit of a superpower sometimes. And when you understand it, you can work with it. And he's doing a really good job of learning how to work with his ADHD. He's become more, like I said, emotionally stable and mature. He's more complimentary and grateful. He's playing with me more. Like I said, I'm a silly person. And so he's learning to be silly with me and not be like, oh, you're being too silly. He's trying to embrace that. And that's really hard. So there's been a lot of positive, especially like emotional maturity happening. And then yeah, just working with each other, just trying to be patient with each other, trying to be patient with me when I have my moments. And so there's been a lot of just mental stability happening.
Well,
Love that.
if I can interject something, I feel like you feel safe to have your moments now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. I was gonna say that. So that's very powerful, no? And thank you for having that awareness, right? Because now you feel safe within yourself. Now allows the other person to be like, okay, I could trust you, right? And of course, it's not fully right. Maybe it's not there yet, but if just having these small moments is just proof to yourself, like, oh, there's that personality. Where was that guy, right? Like, well, what the is this guy, right? And I could attest to that. I remember meeting Andrew, like, man, this is the most wall-off dude I ever met. And in the beginning, I was like, this is all super robotic. If I were to like describe one word, robot. And to be honest, most brothers come in like that. And just to kind of dive deeper within yourself and just notice that you're a very wounded person and you're don't know how to communicate that, or even like you said, how do you express your anger, and this is how I know how to do it, right? It wasn't necessarily that was a he in his mind probably wasn't a bad thing. Like notice that you're hurting others, right, as a result, and that's where the fine line is. And anger, it could be a very reactive emotion. I agree with that because some people suppress it, where it's like
Yeah.
they're like nice guys, we call them, right? Suppressed anger, and they turn depressed because of that. So when you're just exploding the other spectrum of it, right? It's where it's like boom, it's like you went from 0 to 100. And I agree, it's not a catastrophe, bro. Like, come on, like, ground it out, right? You hear me say
Yeah.
the word a lot, Andrew. Like, ground your bro. Anger is a great emotion, right? And I'm like using examples like Mike Tyson, right? I'm always angry, but he uses it in a way, he channels it, right? In a way that's like, hey, this is how I use it.
Yeah.
But no, great job, man. I'm so happy to hear that from your wife here. That is awesome, brother. And when one starts to heal, man, I always have this belief that one heals, the other starts kind of like, whoa, has an effect on both people. And so I'm gonna ask this question. Maybe you already answered it, but what are you most proud of in your husband now?
This was a surprisingly hard question to answer because I'm very proud of the commitment he has made to this program, to attending the calls, to communicating in the groups, and to being an accountable person. And he had his moments where he wasn't following the program as diligently, just life got busy or routines fell apart, but he always caught himself and he always got back on track relatively quickly within probably a couple of weeks. So it's seeing his commitment to changing and to growing has been really inspiring. I know he has a version of himself he wants to be, and I know that person's in there, and he's laying the foundation right now of being able to build that person. He's laying the foundation for the habits. You know, some of the habits that he's developing here will translate really well into other areas of success. We've often been taught that success principles, there are a handful of success principles and they work in any area of life.
Yeah.
And he is working hard to have success in this area. He's focusing on himself to have success in this area of life so we can have success in other areas of life that we've been dreaming about for a while, but we just were never able to get going on because we always felt like we were stuck. So yeah, I'm really proud of the habits and the man he's becoming. He's still the man I fell in love with, but he's just becoming a more polished version of that. And yeah, I'm proud of all the work he's done. I'm proud of all the insight he's made and all the progress. I'm happy with the positive trajectory that he's put his life on.
No, thank you for sharing. And how do you feel, Andrew, hearing all that?
Grateful for, well, a lot of reasons, and grateful for her because, you know, she's been the most patient person in the world, and I probably didn't deserve as much patience as I've received. And grateful for obviously the program because I wouldn't have gotten here without all you guys. So
I'll take credit. No, I'm just playing.
all
No,
you.
it's all me. No, I appreciate those words, brother. Yes, that the whole program is holistic, right? It works every area of your life. So, hey, man,
Yeah.
you put in the hard work. You did all that, to be honest, right? We just provided you the principles and the way, if you will. Learn grasshopper, as we say, young grasshopper. And all right, final question, guys. So, let's start with Catherine. What are some of the words of encouragement you could say to wives who feel hopeless or just kind of like perhaps numbed out and they're like, I'm checked out from this, like let them watch it, right? But even though it's hurting her, like what would you say to that person?
So I kind of have trouble answering this question because I wasn't at that point. I have a background in psychology, so I understand addiction. I understand neurodivergence. And so I understand a lot more than probably most people. And it's not a dig against anyone. It's just what I studied. So I have a very good grasp of what's going on.
Mhm.
And there were times where I was very sad and kind of felt hopeless, but I'd say I never got that far. Like I never had this constant feeling of hopelessness. And so I had to think about this question a lot. And my answer is that if you're feeling there and he is starting this program, focus on yourself. Focus on healing your hurts, focus on finding your identity, focus on overcoming your fears. And people might say it was like, I'm really busy with that. I have a hectic schedule. You know, we've got a lot going on with our family. I just don't have time to focus on myself right now. I have too much going on. And to that, I say to have a healthy, stable family and home life and to be an example of a good couple with good communication, you have to prioritize yourself. And if the head of your home isn't stable and happy and healthy, then the home isn't going to be happy and healthy. And to do that, you have to prioritize yourself. So I don't know what that looked like for everyone, but find a safe place to heal and to grow. Find people that have earned the right to hear your journey or hear your hurts and help you recover. You know, work on strengthening your communication, guard your association and your input. You know, be careful of who you associate with. There'll be people out there that want to tear your partner down, but you want to save your marriage. And it's like, okay, not saying you have to cut them out of your life, just guard your association and guard your input. You know, what are you listening to? What goes into your ears every day? What are you seeing? What are you listening to? What are you hearing around the conversations around you. Just be really careful of that, especially if you're on a healing journey and you want to focus on saving your marriage. You want to focus on, fixing the communication. You want to focus on, being a better example in your home. It's a journey. It's hard. It's painful. I wish I had done more in the last year to focus on myself, but I was just kind of coming over some of my own personal stuff I was dealing with. So I didn't focus as much on myself this last year as I wish I had. But now I am. Like Andrew said, he feels like he's now that safe place for me to be where I can go after my goals and dreams and figure out who I am again. And then the last thing is, this is just a season. It's painful, it's uncomfortable, and you're probably frustrated. And yes, you've given up hope, but it's just a season. I hope that he puts in the work and that he commits to the program and sees results. And it might feel like he doesn't for a while. It might be like 6 or 7 months before you start noticing results. But it's just a season. This will pass. And if you commit to growing yourself and he commits to growing himself, and you work on growing yourself as a couple and as a family, this will pass.
No, thank you for sharing. And what came to mind when you were speaking is, in your case, who heals the healer,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's like, you left wounded and like, what do I do? And
Yeah.
you do need the space. You need that season for yourself. So,
Yeah.
and I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you. I really do. And Andrew, so what would you say to husbands that are like, nah, she's good? They're like downplaying it, right? Because they're, again, in denial. What would you say to these guys?
Oh, to the husbands, I guess I would say just try to understand how much pain this really causes. You probably can't see it if you're just starting this journey. You might not understand, or maybe you don't want to understand because you know it's going to be painful to hear the pain you've caused. Commit to the program, because I mean, for me, there's probably 2 or 3 different components of the program that have independently changed my life that aren't even related to porn addiction. Like she said, I'm becoming more emotionally stable. Well, that's because the coaches and, like the reboot heroes like you and Chris, and the modules and the community have been a safe space for me to work through everything that I needed to go through to get to that point. And I wouldn't have gotten there on my own. I didn't get there with previous one-on-one therapy. And I think, maybe you'll agree, but I think the biggest benefit that I've seen from the program, other than the changes, obviously, that I've gone through on my own, my wife didn't have to be the place that I took my problems anymore. I had a different safe space with guys who were receptive and non-judgmental and had heard it all before and were going through all the same stuff. Like, I know, reboot hero Chris, he always says, the more individual and special you think one of your problems is, the more universal it actually is. And that's proven true every time. So,
That's right.
and the biggest thing that I've been grateful for the program is I haven't felt like I have nowhere else to turn with my problems, which meant I took them to my wife and overwhelmed her, which has then allowed her to be, more free to be who she wants to be, and allowed me to feel more like a man, I guess.
Hey, man, well said, brother. That's good. And I appreciate both of you. You shared very vulnerably here, and I really appreciate this. And for those of you listening, hey, I feel like it's never too late. You may be feeling hopeless or really in the depths of apathy. Just know that it just takes that one step. Get on that phone call, join a group. Maybe, what if your life just changed 10% more or better, actually? I think that's enough. I think that's worth the price. But that's just the initial phase. And then you'll discover more about yourself. And ultimately, yes, I would agree with both of you. It's pain. It is painful, right? You're literally letting go of old stories, old wounds, and none of that's fun. It's not a fun process. But just know that you're literally killing that old self, and you're
Mhm.
allowing that version of yourself that was always there, by the way.
Mhm.
But you didn't allow yourself to see that because of XYZ, right? You name your trauma, you know your story.
Yeah.
And I appreciate both of you. So thank you. And brothers, I'll see you in the next call or testimonial here. And that is it. Thank you for listening.